We always need to do what's right. As Martin Luther King said, it is always the right time to do the right thing. And that kind of dramatizes the speech too. It adds authority and dramatizes. The next technique.
I'm sorry, Steve, if I
Yeah.
may interrupt you. Do you want this recorded?
Thank you. Yes, I did want it recorded, and I forgot to record it. I keep
Right.
forgetting. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Sharon. I'm going to start the recorder right now. Now, our second closing technique, remember the first one was with a quotation. The second one is to tell a short story or anecdote. And what you want to, this is a very effective way. It's very common to use. And if you have a story that really stands out, save it for the end, for your conclusion. And I'll give you an example. Here's an example of how I used a short story or anecdote. Oh, it was one thing. It's got to be quick because you know how much time you got to make it short, and it should reinforce your message. Now, with a humorous speech, it doesn't have to reinforce your message. It just makes people laugh. But here is one. This was a speech called "Cell Phone for Sale" about my daughter Leah. I have a lot of speeches about my daughter Leah, and Leah's a very strong personality. And in this speech, which was true, I was trying to argue with the cell phone company about why her cell phone didn't come yet, and she was like devastated without her cell phone. And they weren't like giving me I wasn't making any progress with them. So I said, "Here, I'll let you talk to Leah." And Leah was just trying to be calm, but she got real mad at them because they were so incompetent. And then they said, "We'll send you one. We'll send you the cell phone right away." And and she got a cell phone the next day, and then she got another cell phone the day after that too. But here's how I ended the speech. This was with Sprint, and actually I made up this ending. This really wasn't. I mean, this didn't really happen. But I hope you can. Here's what happened. Here's what I said. At this time, Sprint had the lowest ratings of all carriers for customer service. But then they made a big effort to improve their service, and I think they succeeded. Because sometime later, when I called Sprint for a refund, they still won't give it to me. So I said, "Here, I'm going to let you talk to my daughter Leah." And they said, "Oh, okay, no, we'll give you the refund right away." So that's I'll just keeping a part of your speech for the end as part of your conclusion. Another one is call for action. That's if you really have a call for action. Lots of times a speech does not have a call for action. Then you want to clearly explain what action the audience should take. I'm going to show you one that I've had. Well, here was one. This was for, I had a speech called "Set Your Toastmaster Goals." And I use a quote here also, but the main point here is it's a call for action. And so here's the way I concluded. I said, "The Toastmasters year starts July the 1st. Let's all start the new year with fresh goals. John D. Rockefeller said, if the ability to communicate with people is as purchasable as a commodity as sugar or coffee, I will pay more for that ability than for any other under the sun." Mr. Toastmaster. And just this is an example. This was from my speech about my inspiration for a coronavirus cure. And this was my last slide. So I had just this picture of the plant that it is and how the leaves of the tree look, and just offer to try it out. This, by using the picture, it makes it memorable. Another way is to ask a rhetorical question. I've never done that, but you can say, "Can we afford to do this?" I ask, "Can we afford not to do it?" This is a really good way here, is referring back to the beginning of the speech. It makes people feel satisfied with your speech. And I'll give you an example of one here. This was one of my speeches. It was called Fourth Grade Vigilante. This was when I was in fourth grade. There were these mean lunch girls that would come in to watch our class. And I was the smallest kid in the class, and they would bully me, and they would take my seat. And I did something about it, which wasn't smart, but I got away with it, and they stopped doing it. They didn't ever do it again. But it was not something, it was something probably you could get away with when I was a kid. If you did it today, you could probably be in a lot more trouble. But here's what I ended my speech with. I had started the speech with a quote from the Bible, from Isaiah, the prophet, and Isaiah said, when you're stuck, you don't know how to go on, lift up your hands and move your legs. The lifting up your hands is just something that gets you moving. So I said, don't do what I did. What I did was very dumb. And the world today is a lot less forgiving than it was when I was in fourth grade. When Franklin Roosevelt was faced with the Great Depression, he said, one thing is sure, we have to do something. We have to do the best we know how to at the moment. At least you can lift up your hands. Madam Toastmaster. And then it's a very common way is to summarize your main points. And it sounds like it's maybe boring, but it's not. You can make it so it's not boring, and but it does take work. And I'll give you, here's an example of one. This is my only speech that made it to the district level. So that means I won the area and then the division, and then I made it to the district. I didn't place in the district, but the name of this speech was called Listen to Your Wife. And it was a humor speech. So here's the conclusion. I should have listened to my wife. Marriage is the joining together of two people who complement each other. This joining is by God and not man. Every human being has a lot of faults. By God's arrangement, the two partners usually do not have the same faults, so we balance each other, and we don't fall as painfully as we would otherwise. Don't be disappointed because of your spouse's faults, or that your spouse restricts your freedom to do as you please. Learn to enjoy it. Mr. Toastmaster. Here's a tip for success: is memorize your conclusion. Memorize your opening, memorize your conclusion. End on time. Don't add new points in the conclusion. And now here is the way Toastmasters has ended this presentation. And they ended it with a quote. Great is the art of beginning, but greater is the art of ending. That is really true. And it really summarizes this whole, that's an excellent quote to use for this message. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Steve. And Shehu, timer, could you please give us a minute so that we could send Steve any